Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this brief ag forecast brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. Well, so far throughout the month of October, we've been quite warm if you are on the eastern side of the Continental Divide. And as you look here over the last 15 days of temperature anomalies just north of the Great Lakes between there, the Hudson Bay, and then New England, we've got a pocket in through here that's currently looking at temperatures that are 14 to 15 degrees above average over that last couple of weeks here. And one of the things we're going to address here at the beginning of this video is when are we going to start to see some sense of a pattern shift, and of course what are the models seeing as well. So the pattern would have to shift away from this. So far through the month of October, we've had this wave train set up where there's been a ridge here and a ridge here, and then troughs tucked away in between. And the amplitude of the pattern has really kept it quite persistent, and there's not been any major reason for it to really deviate and get away from this. In other words, we've not seen a big shift in the Arctic yet. We've not seen big snow cover build up across the northern hemisphere. We've not seen a shift in the MJO that has yet to create a pattern change. I'll talk about that in a second here. But this is what we would need to break away from. Now, the 14-day lag on keeping the MJ over in phase 5 and 6, it tends to reinforce a pattern like you see here. But the MJO, as we now know, has come back into null space and might pop out over here in phase 1 and 2. That would be the opposite phases of 5 and 6. And what we need to think about here is possibly the influence of this in maybe 10 days, 15 days, could start to show some sort of sign that we could break this ridge. This has been the real bottleneck right here. Break this ridge down and let these troughs finally come through and start to spread some of that cooler air on the other side of the Rocky Mountains. That's one of the major things that we're going to be having to watch here. Now, if the MJO does come out and stays out here and then starts to move around like it normally does, that'd be a very strong signal for that pattern change. But we don't quite see that just yet. You see, the trade winds are still quite strong in this area. And what's happening is they're meeting westerly winds here. And over the next 15 days, the best rising motion's kind of tucked in between, which is kind of in this general vicinity. It's not breaking back over into this area anytime soon. But that La Nina is going, and it's going pretty strong. I just want to give you kind of the latest update on it. Now, when you think about this La Nina, just remember the Southern Oscillation Index is still quite positive. The cooler water is really built back over here toward this part of South America. That's critical for the monsoon and what's going to happen in southern Brazil. I'll address that in the other video here in a few moments. But what I want to come back to is this: the cooler water you see here and the cooler water that you see there. Now, if November was going to go over brutally cold, this area here historically is not cold. And that's because we tend to produce big ridges in this area. And then that's what lets the cold air come out. We got to build up a storehouse of cold air in place here in order for that to occur. And we have not done that. Okay, remember the first map, which is not there. That cold air is not in place. So the net effect of what I'm trying to share with you here as we kind of look at this longer term forecast is that all those long range models, they're going to take this and they're just going to kind of, again, push this farther and farther down the road. This is the forecast for the whole of November, that 30-day time period, looking at temperatures compared to average. And what it suggests is if you're kind of east of the Continental Divide here, that we're going to favor more warm days than cool days. It does not mean every day is going to be warmer. You're going to see that. I think we're going to get a bit of a pattern shift in about 10 to 12 days, a temporary one. But without having really cold air already in place here, we won't be able to let that out further to the south and further to the east and then rebuild a ridge behind it. The pattern just didn't build in October to set up a really, really cold November. Not to say that it won't get cold in November, just, well, the temperature pattern will favor more warm days than cool. On the precipitation side of things, take a look at this. We see above average precipitation in parts of the west, and possibly here in the central northern plains, and maybe an active Ohio River Valley storm track, and drier in Texas to the Appalachian Mountains. That's actually quite common during fall when there is a La Nina. So we'll have to see how this all plays out. But if we just come back to that temperature forecast real quick here, I want to show you something. This is from the Ecmwf, just released this evening. This is what we've got from the week 3 and then week 4 from the CFSV2. Very warm, up to a 3 degrees Celsius, 3.5 degrees Celsius warm bias or warm anomaly here. Still keeping it cool along the west. That's week 3, and in week 4 it continues it as well. So what this is suggesting is, while I am seeing, as we get into the first week of November, better chances of seeing more normal temperatures in the eastern half of North America and some cooler shots of air, the models want to allow this pattern to persist, and they're suggesting it may not break down until a later time. It's been something I've really struggled with forecasting this fall, is when this pattern is going to shift and break away, because it's been in place for a while. We'll come back to this in just a second, though. Now that we've got that long-term picture out of the way, though, let's go now look at what we're dealing with in the near term. We do have a large area where we have frost advisories and on the backside freeze warnings, but it's going to be the west coast where all the action is now. This is actually a flood watch here and winter storm watch in the Sierra Nevada. And what's going on is that the upper levels of the atmosphere are just getting ready to toss 2 deep troughs into the west. And what's interesting is this trough on the backside is actually going to be kind of like a slingshot action around the base of this one. And it'll be the second of 2 waves that actually come out in the midsection of the country next week. And that's going to shut down some harvest windows for those folks. So let's take a look at what we've got here. We're going to use first our Ecmwf 12Z upper air pattern setup. So here is our current trough that just went through Michigan, and it's one that's going to go off to the northeast first. But look at how much deeper these troughs are, which are connected to some truly cold air here in the Arctic. The troughs you see over in this part of North America, there's too much warm air to the north of it to be used. So what we're going to see is these 2 troughs are going to interact. This little slingshot action here going into Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Well, there's the first part that gets slung out on Sunday. That moves into the eastern Corn Belt, possibly storms to the south and shuts things down. And then slingshot number 2 comes out next Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. See it there? And that one is connected to some cooler air here, but it's going to also bring in some inclement weather and really stretch out a long area all through here where we could see much above average precipitation. That slides in and then gets set up into a deeper trough that's centered on the Great Lakes but extends all the way to the south while the ridge builds here. Now you might go, wow, that's going to be a pattern change for week 2. But I'm going to tell you, this ridge is still here and there's still more troughs reloading in this area. You've got to get rid of this. That's the block. That's the thing that's keeping all of this from moving. And while we could get some temporary shots at some cooler air, I'm not seeing a full breakdown in it just yet, okay? So let's go to the high-res NAM to kind of check out how things are going to progress through this evening. There's our scattered showers and storms here with the first low that's moving on off. And the west coast is taking its kind of first lashing in the overnight hours into early morning from our frontal boundary from the first system going into British Columbia. So that is heavy precip coming in here on that frontal boundary. As we go through the morning on Friday and then eventually into Friday afternoon and evening, scattered showers through parts of the eastern Corn Belt. And then as we get through Friday night and into Saturday morning, we're going to start to see a front develop right here from parts of Nebraska into southern Illinois. This will be Saturday evening. And that front is tucked away between higher pressure to the southeast and a little higher pressure to the north of it. And there's going to be just a squeeze in the atmosphere. And we're going to watch along that on Sunday for the development of a low coming out of this part of the high plains. Meanwhile, this is the beginning of the really big punch coming into the west. And to show you that, I want to go over to our multi-model analysis. So we've seen through the day on Friday. Let's get through that. And now we are into Saturday morning, afternoon, and evening. And then let's go ahead and get into Sunday. So what we've got now, by the time we get into Sunday morning, is that low that's coming out here. Now what you notice is the GFS, which is on the left, is more progressive. It's moving it farther to the east quicker. But look at the depth of this low and just the stream of moisture coming into Northern California, as shown here on the Ecmwf on Sunday morning. That continues throughout the day on Sunday afternoon and evening. That is a big punch right there. Look at that. But what we also have is that this system that's curling here with that lead wave starting to develop into a low. We're going to get some storms to the south of it here on Sunday night. Broad front out to the east, and both models are reflecting that. But as we go from Sunday into Monday morning, afternoon, and evening, the GFS is more progressive with pushing this farther to the east and letting a more dominant ridge develop here, broader. But the European slows this down a bit, and it's got it in place here. It may be, I may have misspoken there. That's a 1024 high. The European's got a 1028. So the European has the bigger ridge, which might be slowing the progress of this down, and the GFS is quicker. Meanwhile, in the west, Monday, big push coming in here into the west, a lot of snow, a lot of rain, And here is that second trough that gets kind of slingshotted, is that a word, out ahead of that next low. Now, the European and the GFS are different on this one. This is out there next Wednesday, Tuesday night to Wednesday morning. You can see the GFS favors a low here and a broad pressure trough. The European has the broad pressure trough, but it has the low spinning up over Wisconsin and Minnesota. See that next Thursday? Either way, they both bring a lot of precip into the Great Lakes, into the central and eastern Corn Belt, down into the southeast and here over the kind of, this region in the mid-Atlantic, getting up into Pennsylvania. And if I come back here, just want to point out, we need to watch out midweek next week, toward the end of the week, for severe storms again to the south. Now, as you see all that rain coming through, look at what we're going to be adding it to. This map shows you the last 30 days % of normal precipitation. So folks getting chased out this weekend and early next week from the next two systems in the eastern Corn Belt, that's going to be a problem. Look how wet it's been here. We don't see the heaviest precipitation here coming in the next few days. But you will notice major changes in this map in Northern California and Oregon, and then extending into this region as well. Because the European model, this is what it's adding to the total precipitation. That's the European through the next 7 days, and this is the GFS. When we look at them back and forth, European, GFS, we can compare them, and this is what you end up getting. Overall, I'd say that the European is a much wetter solution at this point than the GFS, especially for the systems coming out here in the parts of the Mid-South and into the Western Corn Belt. European is wetter. Only one little stripe right in through here where the GFS is wetter. And in California, same thing, although the European is drier compared to the GFS as you get into this part of the Sierra Nevada. What about week 2? Well, snow first. Sorry, almost forgot about this. We could be adding up to 4 to 5 feet of snow in the Sierra Nevada, also up in the Cascades, and some bigger snowfall amounts here in the Rockies. And what's interesting is, I pulled this up. This is snowfall accumulation so far this cold season, and what we've got here is over a foot in parts of Montana and Wyoming, and that is more than what's currently sitting in the Sierra Nevada. So the Sierra Nevada are going to catch up here pretty quick with this snow that's forecast to come through here. Now we get out into week 2. Pattern's doing something like this. Trough reloads, ridge still in place, but the flow is doing that. Now that produces a lot of upper level convergence in the jet stream here. Remember, all the action, the rising motion is always downstream of a trough, here and here. And that's why both the European and the GFS have this outlook. In fact, let's go back there and have a quick look at this. That's why they both, for that week 2 time period, let's play it out. Yeah, there you go, into week 2. There it is. Have drier conditions here, the wetter weather in the northeast, and the wetter weather coming into the Pacific Northwest. It's always on the downstream side of those troughs, okay? So we could get a break here. Temperatures, and we'll finish this up a little bit on Europe. I want to talk minimum temperatures first. Okay, so we've seen these. This was on Thursday. Let's get into Friday morning. That's our lows on Friday. Got a frost. We already saw the frost advisories here for it. That cooler air on Saturday keeps pushing to the east. So now our coldest air is in place in and around the Great Lakes in the upper Midwest. And we're going to get that over the Northeast on Sunday. So I'm going to be watching out for some frost here on Sunday. But your eye is probably drawn to what's going on in the southern plains. Big warm up there. And that warm air is going to push to the east by Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Now, real quick, let's go ahead and have a look at those max temperatures. This was on Thursday. Here's Friday's max. Getting into Saturday. Look at this. This is like late summer heat, mid to upper 80s possible. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. That's when we're getting the really cold air in the west. And out there to next Wednesday. All right, so got a good look here now at the next several days of our temperature pattern. Day 5 through 10. We just kind of shrink this up real quick. We can see that overall, when that trough reloads, we still see more mild conditions here. But as we stated, given the MJO what it's doing, knowing that we're going to let this pattern progress at times, the day 10 through 15 is now starting to show some cooler air coming through here. But that's as that deeper trough develops here. The trough is there, and there's a ridge in between. But this could have been so much colder if October would have built up a storehouse of colder air there, and it didn't. So that's what we're looking at over the next 15 days in terms of temperatures. Okay, want to finish up with a bit on Europe. Okay, much of the Black Sea region, especially in Ukraine, has been quite dry. We think a lot about winter wheat planting in this area. It's only been wet when you get just to the east of the Black Sea. And over the next month, we continue to see drier conditions here. So this might just start to play out as a story we need to keep a close eye on, all right? We'll wrap it up there. Have a good weekend, and I'll talk to you again on Monday. Thanks.